after World War II, as late as, I'm trying to remember, the 60s into the 70s, the top bracket on the income tax, the amount that the people at the top had to pay, I think at the last year I looked, if you made, those years it was a lot of money, if you made more than $125,000, that was the highest bracket. If you made 125 or more, you paid, ready? 91%. Every dollar you earned over the top bracket, you kept 9 cents of that dollar and you gave Uncle Sam 91 cents. You all with me? What is the rate, the top rate now for people at the highest amount? 35. Okay, you all with me? That means people who are the richest had a drop in their tax from 91 to 35% on everything above the, at the highest level, which for them is where most of their income is. That is a staggering tax cut. That makes everybody else's tax cut nothing by comparison. By the way, when Obama proposed to tax rich people, the one that didn't get through in December, he was asking to go back to the rate it was before he was president. Instead of 35%, 39%. That's all he wanted. Not 91, 70, 60, 50, 39, from 35 to 39. No, said the Republicans. No, said the Democrats. We didn't get it. So we have a bigger deficit because rich people wouldn't allow their income taxes to go from 35 to 39%. Of course, rich people don't actually pay 35% because there's all kinds of deductions so they can whittle down the amount of net income. You don't pay on your gross income, you pay on your wage and salary less deductible expenses. For example, taxes you pay on the 3 houses you own, or on the boat you have, or money you pay for your sick grandma under certain circumstances, money you pay for your children's education to a point. There's all kinds of arrangements that you can make that reduce it further. But even if you just look at the rates, the bottom line is, within the individual category, there's also been a shift. Just like it's been from corporations to individuals, it's been from the top. By the way, not from the top, reducing the top and sticking it to the bottom. The bottom hasn't been stuck to. It's the middle. There's nothing, you don't have anything at the bottom. So it's really the middle. It's the middle. It's the middle. It's you. That's who this is. The taxes have come on you. And the anger of the middle class, and the tax revulsion, and the tax revolts in the United States, they are all about the fact that the middle income distribution has really taken it. They're the ones who pick it up when the corporations don't pay, and they're the ones who pick it up when the top doesn't pay. And they're the ones who thought that the United States was their opportunity. And they're getting stuck, and they've been getting more and more stuck for 30 years, and they're getting angrier and angrier and bitterer and bitterer. And if you're in the middle, you're always vulnerable, not just from someone on the left telling you this story, but someone on the right telling you that, you know why you're really in trouble? It's because of immigrants. Well, it has to be somebody. You're very angry, you're feeling a lot of pain, you want to get angry at somebody. Beat up on the government, that's a good Republican. Beat up on the immigrant. Beat up on some selected minority, you can all guess who that'll be. All the usual candidates. You listen where Mr. Glenn Beck gets himself into trouble. Gets himself into trouble because he keeps pushing the envelope on this stuff. And now he's got immigrants and Democrats and George Soros, who is a Jew. And they could see, this is a script that has been written over and over again, and this is a play that's being worked out. I don't know if you caught that since we last met. 400 rabbis in the United States freaked out and demanded that Glenn Beck either be fired or issue a public apology because he kept referring to George Soros's large nose. But you know the iconography of Hitler in Germany, this is not an original idea for Glenn Beck. But this is a part of where American, and the people that listen to Glenn Beck cheer him on. And there are millions of them. On the other hand, things are complicated. I think I told you, I told somebody. Glenn Beck invited me to be on his television program, and I went. And he and I spoke in front of the 10, he told me there were 10 million people watching. I believe there were only 2. 2 million, sorry. But, in case you're interested, he and I agreed for the whole 6 or 7 minutes of national airtime that we shared on that television program. He invited me, I didn't seek it out. He invited me. He was furious, just in case you're wondering, he was furious that rich elite universities don't pay taxes, can you imagine, in the local communities where they're located. And he was interested particularly in one, Yale University, located in New Haven, Connecticut. Can you imagine, here's one of the richest universities on earth, paying no taxes to the 7th poorest city in the United States. Is that a fact? It is. And he was talking to people, including his mother-in-law, who lives in New Haven, if I understand correctly. And she's a secretary at Yale, knows all about this, is a member of a union. They have a strong union at Yale, believe it or not. And so she recommended, she knew somebody who knew about this because he lived in New Haven, and he had worked with the union for many years, and had even run for mayor of New Haven on a program of taxing Yale. That's me. I didn't. So she, the mother-in-law, asked him to invite me on the program. And he did, and I went.
Put that one on your website.
Was it fun? It was fine. Everything went the way it's supposed to. The worst part of it is if you do this sort of thing, when you arrive there, they put you in what looks like a barber chair. You lie back, and a very nice young lady came and put an array of powders and creams on you. And then when you're done with this, they put you in a studio setting where you have an immense bank of hot lights about 6 feet from your face. So you get the tremendous heat and your body cannot perspire. And so after 6 or 7 minutes, you die. You don't, but you're very, very uncomfortable. And he was as uncomfortable as I am because he's a very chubby fellow, has a lot of extra weight on him. And, but I guess he's used to it. Sir?
Yes. This is just a small question. The issue of the war, the continuing 10-year war in terms of the economy and the fact that we're paying for it and people are dying and so on and so forth, that this is part of business as usual now. It's part of our economy. And some folks are making money out of it, some people are dying, but we're paying for it. And how do you see people becoming aware of the expense of this war, the amount of money which is being poured into the war while the schools are deteriorating, while private universities are charging more and more and more? And how do you see this moving towards some kind of response? I won't say uprising, but response of the public.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It's been completely normalized. The president and the other speakers didn't think they had anything to say much about it. They either said nothing or they said something in passing that didn't deal with it as if it were an economic issue. You know, military spending is also Keynesian spending. It's just another way of funneling money in. But instead of Washington going to Nebraska and pumping money into the economy of Nebraska by building a highway or a road, what the government does is fund another division in Afghanistan or in Iraq But most of that money is coming back into the United States, either to pay for the equipment, or to pay the salaries and the provisioning of the soldiers, or to pay the company whose mercenaries are doing half of what the army used to do there, and which banks that money in a bank in Philadelphia, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just government spending like everything else. It maintains a huge number of industries, because it's a big outlay of money, 1 or 2 or 300 billion, when you add it all up for these wars in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. So I think, yeah, it's become a normalized part of the sustaining of the American economy by vast government outlays. And the organized interests that want that spending to continue are large, well-financed, and been doing this for 50 years. Where's the constituency to push the other way? There isn't there. Unless there's a mass peace movement of some kind, then there would be a counter-pressure. But you're having a situation in which all those politicians in Washington get a tremendous pressure to keep this going. And nothing to not keep it going. If the mass of American people were to begin to think like you do, that the cost of the war over there is what's depriving my kid of a school, or my neighborhood of a fire department, or my city of it, then if that were, but that takes a movement to make that point ad infinitum, so it becomes part of people's thinking. We don't have that. The press did not go after Mr. Obama or Mr. Bernanke about making little of the war, about basically making it a footnote to a speech as if it didn't matter. And clearly, you know, it's not just the people who died, but there are now studies coming out a lot about the suicide rate of returning soldiers, those who come back with post-traumatic stress, who can't live normal lives, who become terrorists for the rest of their families, all of that. That's a much bigger social phenomenon than those who die. I'm not evaluating which is better or worse, but it is, and that doesn't occasion any, that I can discern, any kind of movement in the United States. And you could see it in Egypt. Egypt, mass movement gets rid of Mubarak. But you know, now the hard work's, what's going to happen? Where's this society going to go? And what are the organizations that can mobilize people to push in one direction versus another? The two organizations one hears about are the Army and the Muslim Brotherhood.
You know, it's a conscript army there.
Okay, so
That's
it's
a
a
big
conscript
difference.
army, that's a problem for
And
them.
there are some trade unions.
There are some, but you know, they're relatively small and they're relatively weak, and they outlawed many of the other political parties, particularly on the left, as they have in so many countries. They don't have the organizations. Doesn't mean they can't build them, but that's kind of crucial at this point, to build organizations. And that also makes you wonder about the United States, where we've had an atrophy of the trade union movement, the socialist movement, the communist movement, and so on. And if things begin to fall apart here, what are the organizations that are going to move here? How are they going to move people? What organizations are they?
Moody's.
What?
Moody's.
Moody's.
They move people.
There's somebody who asked, yeah.
I'm not sure if my question is large or small, but I appreciate your perspective, and it's not specifically tied to your talk today. I came across the work of a populist economist who has a video program, and he's popularizing a view that predicts imminent financial collapse of the monetary system. His name is Ted Martinson, and he publishes a video thing for $10. You could get this 30-class course called the Crash Course. And I watched this and tried to understand it, and don't quite know what to make of it. And it doesn't come across, it's not obvious